I love biological dentists. Even though it's very expensive, they can return people's health. Now, the tricky thing about root canals is they leave the periodontal ligament, which tells the body there's nothing, not a problem here. But there's thousands of porous channels within the tooth. So whenever you leave that periodontal ligament, you tell the body there's not a problem. Lots of bacteria stuck in the porous channels of the tooth that can fester.
Welcome back to another episode of the Peak Performance Life podcast. Today, I am very excited to have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Jess Peatross. She is a previous board-certified internal medicine hospitalist turned functional medicine leader. She's an expert in the areas of stealth infections, environmental toxicity, mold, regenerative medicine, ozone. Her passion lies in uncovering the mystery behind the chronic illness, whether that be different infections, heavy metals, stress, trauma, or other environmental toxicities, the real root cause answers. That's what she's looking for. Dr. Jess, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, Laura. I really appreciate it. I'm honored.
Yes, we're honored to have you as well. You do great work. I've heard you on a bunch of other podcasts as well and thought, hey, we got to get her on here and talk about everything from mold, parasites, environmental toxicities. But maybe we'll start with a brief kind of background of kind of how you got into the work you're doing today.
Absolutely. So it's been a wild ride, I will say. I started out in conventional medicine. As you mentioned, I was previously board certified in internal medicine and really believed everything they taught me. I got my flu shots and I ate out of the hospital cafeteria, and I didn't think anything was wrong with discharging people on 30 medications. And then one day, the cracks started to form in the system for me. It was really social media that woke me up. I started seeing these outlandish claims on social media, and I'd go research it and be humbled. And then, I would start complaining in the hospital. I would say, do you guys know, why do we have Cheetos and Coca-Cola in the hospital? Why is it even an option for sick patients? And they would say, well, we have to follow the food pyramid guidelines. And I would be discharging people on 30 or 40 medications. And deep down, I knew that wasn't real health.
Wow.
And so I started complaining. I started being a little more disruptive. I started asking questions, and I really was kind of stonewalled. They said, medicine is really messed up. We all know that. You just need to be quiet and work. And I really couldn't. I really tried. It pulled at my heartstrings for months. I was really scared to leave, just like all of us other MDs are, I'm sure. Didn't know how I was going to support myself. And I jumped and I started getting trained in functional medicine. I walked away from the system and really got trained by another medical doctor in California, another naturopathic doctor. I made a fourth of the money I used to make. I was really barely able to make ends meet. But in the end, it was a wonderful journey that led me here. And now I'm so fulfilled in my career because I get people off of medication rather than put them on medication.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Real quick, for maybe some of the newer listeners, we've had a bunch of episodes with some amazing functional health practitioners on. But for those that don't really know the difference, you've been in traditional medicine and now you do functional medicine. How would you describe the difference between the two?
So traditional medicine is more reactive in nature. I would say functional or root cause medicine is more proactive in nature. And conventional medicine really looks at symptomatology and tries to fit you in a box with a label so that they can prescribe a pharmaceutical. And you see this with insurance companies in the hospital or even in the outpatient setting. They have ICD-10, ICD-11 codes that help bill for a certain diagnosis that then provides a medication. And a lot of these medications are life-saving. If you're in an emergency situation, you'd want to go to the ER or to urgent care. But for chronic health conditions, they really miss the mark. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of the medications and pharmaceuticals are Band-Aids, and it's just not a pill for every ill. I would love it if a pill could fix every problem. That would make my job so easy. But it's really not that. It's about trauma. It's about lifestyle. It's about decisions and choices we make that change our genes. And until conventional medicine gets on board with that, they will continue to be reactive and not solve root cause problems.
Love that. Love that. You mentioned decisions, choices that we make that change our genes. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So our genes are, for a long time, we thought they were static. We have, millions of genes. We don't know what any of them code for. We used to say 99% of our genes were junk DNA, which we now know isn't true. There are a number of different potentials out there that your genes can turn on, off, or there are gradients of that. And basically, they decide to turn on and off or change based on the environment. So the environment actually signals what genes are pressed, almost like the keys on a piano. And you can change them positive or negatively based on your environment, your thoughts, your choices, your consciousness. And so I think we've all been taught that it's just in our genes. There's nothing you can do. And we believe that you can negatively change genes in the epigenetic fashion, but we don't believe you could change them back positive. And that's the message that I hope a lot of people out there hear today.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Oh man, there's so much to say about that. But people think like, and I also wonder, this is an interesting thought, like when people say like, oh, someone in my family has had this or whatever, it's in my family, so they think it's in their genes or something like that. Well, I often wonder, well, is it the genes, or is it because you were raised in a household with them and maybe took on a lot of their habits and choices and decisions, thought processes, foods they eat, everything else? Or, which one really is it? And we know there obviously is some factor of genetics. You look like your parents sometimes from a genetic perspective there. But the idea that just because you are, get your genes tested and see that you may have the ApoB one, or what's it called? The one, for Alzheimer's one, for example?
Yeah, you're right. The APO gene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The APO gene doesn't mean you're destined to have Alzheimer's. You can make different choices and change that.
Exactly. And there are 4 different alleles or genes that can be changed to give you a higher or lower percentage based on how many there are of Alzheimer's. And what determines how many of those are turned on or not? When you get your genes, let's say you do like a genetic genie or some sort of, hopefully not 23andMe, something more private, but, you may have a set of genes or genes that are not maybe as advantageous as you'd like, but that test doesn't tell us whether the genes are turned on or off, or they're active or not. It just says you have this potential, right? Yeah. So people need to know that too. The genes are not a death sentence.
Yes, right? Yes. So you have a lot of people that come to you with problems that they just can't figure out what it is. And so I know you talk a lot about mold, environmental toxins, parasites. Why don't we start with parasites? It's actually been a huge kind of trend or fad or craze recently. This parasite cleanses are going crazy online. Tell us a little bit about parasite, like who would need to do a parasite cleanse? How do you know if you have parasites? Don't we all have parasites to some extent? Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, great question. I do believe at some point in everyone's life, they will at least be exposed to a parasite. Most of us do end up having one, a larva or eggs or something. I know it's gross, but at some point in our life. And in fact, I've got a really good parasite test where it's kind of old school. Not only do they use PCR, but they actually look with their eye under a microscope at the slide. And that's like a forgotten art. So, and everyone that I give that test to just about has something come up. So, I know no one wants to think they have any sort of worms or parasites, but it is a thing. And parasites don't understand about borders. So when people tell me it doesn't happen in the USA, I'm like, I don't think they understand that. And plus, we don't have the greatest food supply in the world anymore. We don't have the cleanest nation. We have a lot of industrial man-made toxins now, which attract parasites. So, and there are different types, right? There are different categories. There are thousands of them. 30% of them are microscopic. And they're stealth. They have been around as long as we have. They are not bad at their job, which is hiding and evading our old school tests. So.
And what would be, I know, I actually, many years ago, I spoke to someone who did a lot of parasite cleansing and was into the stuff, kind of like you are, an expert in it. And I have to admit, I stopped eating sushi after that. Is that, yeah, what do you think? Is sushi kind of and I almost hate to say this on this podcast because I know probably so many people like
Oh,
sushi,
I
but I
know.
think it's important to discuss what are some of the foods that if we want to be cautious, like myself, I
Hmm.
don't like sushi that much to risk getting parasites over it, honestly. But yeah,
Yeah, I have friends who love sushi and they'll be like, I'll just take the parasite herbs tonight. Like I literally, like they can't stay away. So, but yeah, sushi is a great place to get parasites. Unfortunately, it's raw fish. I mean, if you guys have seen, God forbid, the videos that some people put on online of like the salmon that has little worm like actively crawling in it while it's packaged in Whole Foods. Like I've definitely
oof,
seen this video. It's definitely wild caught salmon because parasites are anywhere, and parasites are there in the environment too. They steal your nutrients, they steal your food. They also digest organic waste. In a lot of the animal studies, they eat heavy metals, and some of the fish studies show that the cestodes in the fish contain 6 times the heavy metals that we would assume the fish alone would have, and that's because they are good at digesting organic waste. And so there is a purpose for them. They also digest scar tissue in some of the studies. So if there's an injury to an area that has scar tissue, if there's somewhere there's heavy metals in the body, you may have a problem with parasites and or candida because that's what its job is out in the environment, right? So it's really important to match up symptomatology with a decently reputable test. None of them are perfect.
yeah.
And yeah, and I would say other foods you can get sushi from. Sushi is a great one. Pork is another one. Pork is sushi
And
is
does it
parasite
have to
ridden.
be? What if it's cooked well? What if for example a salmon is cooked, you're going to decrease
Mhm.
the chances of getting parasites from it, I assume, right?
Possibly, yes. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you though, it's some of them, like the salmon roe or the salmon in general, they have to be frozen for almost a week to get rid of any
Interesting.
parasitic eggs or parasites. Yes. So
Oh,
these things are they're very adaptable and they're very hard to get rid of depending on what kind of parasite you're dealing with. And so, freezing them is a great way to I like to buy my fish frozen at least for a week so I know that I've taken care of that. So that's kind of a hack is make sure you're ordering fish that's been frozen for a while, not just caught. And although
that's a
everyone
good
likes
hack.
live fish, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a good way. Another pork is another one, like you said, if it's cooked all the way, there are less chances.
Mhm.
But if you're going out to a restaurant to eat pork, you're really kind of taking a risk. You're taking your chances, right?
Yeah.
Bacon that's not all the way cooked, that's still kind of rubbery, is a great way, unfortunately. And then you can get parasites from the environment out in bodies of water, out in the soil. Sometimes hookworms live in the soil. It has to be someone who is immunocompromised probably, and it's more of a sitting duck for these opportunistic pathogens to really take hold out in the environment that way sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We were at the dog park at the beach last summer, and then I'm walking barefoot, and then I'm
Hmm.
looking around, and I'm seeing all the dogs peeing and going to the bathroom all over the sand, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be barefoot over here.
Seriously, stuff like that,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
letting your dogs lick you in the face, letting your animals lick you in the face is another great way. Letting your
Mhm.
animals sleep in bed with you. I've been guilty of this before, right? I mean, you have to think about the people that you're sharing a household with, even your animals and your pets. You're basically kind of sharing a microbiome with them.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I'm guilty too, and I don't think that's going to change. That dog with my wife and I ain't leaving the bed at this point. So,
I get it. I get it.
yeah,
I had a pup and I slept with her too. So yeah,
yeah,
it's hard.
yeah,
It's just like, make sure you're cleansing maybe like every 4 to 6 months.
yeah. There you go. So you mentioned some of your friends just take herbs if they are going to eat. So let's say someone's like, "Hey, you know what? I'm at least having sushi once every 2 or 3 months," and when they do, are there herbs they could take that night or that day that would help? Is
Yes.
that like the wormwood, black walnut, and those kind of things? Yeah,
You got it. That's
perfect.
exactly it. Yeah. And that's a great way just to kind of anything that took hold or you ingested that maybe you didn't intend on ingesting, that can kill it right at the get go. So you don't have a problem later on when it's really reproduced within the body. I have a friend I'm thinking of right now. He loves sushi, and I'm never going to get him to quit eating sushi. It's just a thing. He's going to take herbs the rest of his life every time he eats sushi. He loves it. And I mean, who am I to take something like that away when you really adore something? Like, there are
Yeah,
ways to get around things. You have to live. Um,
yeah.
Another thing with parasitic herbs are cravings. If you're having sugar cravings at night, you can go take a dropper full of some parasitic herbs and take your cravings away.
Nice, nice. That's
Yeah,
a good hack. Love that.
yeah, yeah.
Other environmental toxins that you see are a big problem for people.
Yes. So everyone who comes into my clinic, my virtual clinic, gets this test I love. It's by Vibrant Wellness. It's called the Total Tox Test. It is so cool to Laura. It actually looks at mold mycotoxins, heavy metals, and environmental toxins like Roundup, organophosphate pesticides, atrazine, plastics, phthalates, pesticides, all that stuff. So I can really tell where a person is in their toxic load every single time they come to me because I look at these every day. I know what the average is. So many people on this test have BPA. Almost every person I see has BPA in the red because it's not just heating up, eating, and drinking out of plastic. It's also like touching sales receipts have BPA,
Yeah.
BPS, BPF on them. So many people have those plastics, microplastics on that test. So many people have organophosphate pesticides because they're an aerosol. So if someone in your neighborhood is spraying and you breathe that in, it's impossible, you know? So I see that a lot. Anyone who doesn't have a good water or shower filter, I'll see things like atrazine and pesticides in the runoff water, that they're getting on their skin, even in the shower. I also see a lot of perchlorate, which is a byproduct made in the water because the water supplies are cleaned by chlorine. They're
Mm.
disinfected with chlorine and ozone, and chlorine mixes with other toxins within the water supply to make perchlorate, which actually gets in the way of iodine and thyroid synthesis. And
Wow.
so people start to have Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, things like that from things like mercury or perchlorate and stuff that's in the water and other places.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned it sounds like you would highly recommend having a filtered shower head, one that's specifically meant to filter out kind of chlorine and heavy metals and stuff like that, not just a regular shower head.
Absolutely. When I got mine, I was kind of late to the train. People were going to be surprised about this. I didn't actually get a shower filter until like 2 or 3 years ago. But I
Yeah, me
distinctly
too.
remembering. Okay, good. So we're on the same wavelength here.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so I distinctly remembering my hair felt less like hay and dry. My skin, like on my legs, wasn't rough. It was so super soft, and I realized it was from all the byproducts and toxicities in our tap water. I call it infertility water, but for
Hmm.
obvious reasons.
Hmm. Mm. Do you have a brand you like for the filtered shower head?
I have a few. I like Jolie.
Hmm.
Aqua Sauna is pretty good too. My very favorite water filter is Spring Aqua, and they just started making a shower filter. It's basically an ecosystem in a box for your water, your drinking water. It goes under the sink. It filters. It structures. It adds dissolved hydrogen, which pushes out radiation. So it does everything. And then they just made a shower filter. So I actually have that on my shower filter right now because it's filtering and structuring.
Oh, so they also have is it like a reverse osmosis system?
Yes, it's reverse osmosis, filters, and then structures. They have like three different little bottles that go under your sink. So one's for filter, one's for structure, one's for dissolved hydrogen. It
So
is
yeah,
amazing.
it'll basically reverse osmosis, filter out all the bad stuff, then kind of bring it back to life by structuring it, and then add the hydrogen in there as well
Yes,
at the end. What's the name of
you
that
got
one?
it.
I'm going to get that one.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Spring Aqua, and it's called Ecosystem in a Box. Spring
Spring
Aqua.
Aqua. I'm
Yeah.
taking notes. I'm taking notes.
I
I love it.
love it. It is so good. You're going to be happy. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Um, and then I know we must obviously touch on mold as well.
We must.
What I live in Vegas, so it's pretty
Okay.
dry here. Although I did actually have it rained for like a week straight, which is rare here. And all of a sudden, I see started smelling something, and I see something kind of leak through here there as well. But luckily, I think we're pretty dry for the most part. But a lot of people in other places, and could it still be a problem in a lot of dry places, or is it mostly in kind of the different climates?
It definitely can, even if it's dry, I've still seen a problem. Like, I've had one of the worst mold situations I've ever seen. There's a or mycotoxin called mycophenolic acid that comes from a couple different species of mold. And I saw it probably like a level of 5,000, which is off the charts. I've never seen it so high in one person who was in Oman. And that's a very dry climate. And she lived in a concrete house, but there was a little bit of a leak that was on the concrete all the time. And
Mm,
so it's like, even though that was a dry environment, if there's still a leak, it still can really populate. Yeah,
gotcha.
sadly.
Um, so, okay, so, and how would, obviously, people have probably heard by now, I hope, that if you have a leak, you got to, make sure the mold doesn't build up and stuff like that. But are there any kind of
Mhm.
like hidden things or like, and how would people even know? I guess a lot of times people just come to you and they're like, I don't know what's wrong with me, right? Like, how do they even know? Like,
Yes.
how do you know how would you know you have mold or parasites or anything,
They normally don't. They're looking everywhere, and seeing every practitioner to try and figure out these mystery symptoms that no one can get to the root of for them. So, and oftentimes, if I keep asking why, it does go back to something like mold or parasites. And mold is tough, right? Because a lot of people don't want to be told there's something wrong with their home that they love. They also don't want to believe that it's that easy. They also don't want to pay sometimes thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for remediation. It is really a racket. And so I understand why that was the last ditch effort for a lot of people. But mold in general, what do these things cause? What symptoms? So with mold, a lot of people can have a myriad of symptoms depending on where they're colonized in their body from breathing mold spores in. But it really sticks in mucous membranes, and mold loves fat. So think the brain, think the bile. So a lot of people start being puffy. They'll start gaining weight, have some weight resistance. They'll start feeling like they have Alzheimer's. They can't recall names, or think clearly, almost a brain fog picture. They'll have these waxing, waning, or continuous fatigue. And lack of motivation. Oftentimes, if people have sensitive genes, they can't even get out of bed in a really moldy house or water damaged home. People have these pins and needles sensations on their skin. They may have histamine reactions, things like bloating, palpitations, eczema, brain fog, fatigue. All of that comes with mold. And a really striking feature is that it inhibits antidiuretic hormone in the brain, because it's like a cytokine storm in the brain, kind of like COVID. So those two together are a real humdinger. But it inhibits antidiuretic hormone, which makes people pee. They can't hold their urine, so they'll start peeing all night long. And children who've been potty trained will start bedwetting again.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. Whew.
a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess what can people, you know, should people be testing their home kind of on their own?
Yeah.
Should they hire someone to test it? What's a good protocol there?
Yeah, if you have symptoms that no one can seem to figure out, there can be some clues. Some people feel better when they go on vacation. They think just it's because they're on vacation. That some people in the home will be sick, other people won't because they may have sensitive genes. If you can't figure out your health condition, it's not a bad idea to do an air analysis test on your home. I like an ERMI test, Environmental Relative Moldy Index is what ERMI stands for.
Mhm.
And it's developed by the Environmental Protection Agency. Even though they don't recommend it, they developed it. And so you can get one of these online. It's a do-it-yourself test you do at home. They tell you how to vacuum and sweep certain areas of the house. You let the dust collect before you do it. And then I look at these so much, I've kind of like standardized them, kind of like I have the Total Tox. So if someone's sensitive or not, I can tell the level of the moisture they should or shouldn't have in their home. And oftentimes it's not an overt leak. It's not an overt, like there's mold everywhere behind the walls that you can't see sometimes, but not all the time. Sometimes it's just there's a moisture problem. You need a dehumidifier to keep it below, 60, 50%. Sometimes it's that there's a lack of airflow because we're building these energy efficient homes where there's no airflow whatsoever. That's what keeps mold in check in the environment.
Wow.
And right, great for energy efficient, not so good for how nature intended. Then we use like these particle boards, these paints, these toxic adhesives, and we wonder why people get sick when they get wet. We wonder why mold shows up to digest organic waste that's not even supposed to be around because we made it up. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Gypsum or drywall, ironically, never dries when it gets wet, and toxic black mold loves it, it eats it. So the way we're building homes is not how nature intended. It's against nature. It's not working with nature. So we're seeing the repercussions of our decisions on the home industry now. And these homes don't even last nearly as long as what they built back in ancient days. So there's something to be learned about how we're building these toxic boxes for sensitive genes.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been a lot more aware of like trying to open the door, especially if like, we're cooking a steak or something and that the whole house smells like steak. That's a cue to like, hey, let's open the door and the windows because we're breathing
Yeah.
in burnt, smoke here. Hopefully you're not cooking on super high heat and burning it either. That would be even worse. And then breathing that in on top of it.
And then eating it.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
eating the charred burnt steak and breathing in the smoke from it all, and you took something that could have been healthy and you made it toxic. Yeah,
Right. So it's things like that's a good awareness, though. You see how quickly when you're cooking something, that burning smell comes up and you're breathing it. That's the recirculated air we're breathing every day within our homes. It's 80% of the air we breathe is indoors. And so how can we make that cleaner, crisper? Sometimes that means designing houses different, with airflow different, with humidity different. Sometimes that means really quality air filters, because maybe you spend $1,000, $1,500 on an air filter. It keeps you from spending 50,000 on remediation. You know what
that's
I
right.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What do you have any favorite brands or brands that you like for air filters?
Yes, great question. So, I have two different tiers, and I love both these air filters, but I'll tell you my experience. Okay, so most people have heard of Air Doctor. That's a great one. It's around $300, $400. It's HEPA Plus filter, so it has HEPA Plus, a carbon or charcoal filter, which helps. We use a charcoal as a binder, so it pulls things in and sucks them up and binds them up out of the air. But if you can afford it and you really have a mold problem and you're sensitive, the Air Doctor is great, but it can't compete with the Asiate. The Asiate, ASIET, the website is Just Good Clean Air. I don't get a kickback from them at all. I do not get paid for this advertisement. I have two of them in my house, and they're about $1,500, $1,600, but they use photocatalytic oxidation, and it destroys mold spores in the air. And so I've tested this out on a couple of my friends who, when they were little, they probably should have been in a bubble because they're so allergic. I mean, both of them can wheeze at night, sometimes need an inhaler. And when I don't have the filters on, they can't be in my home in Florida. When I have the
Wow.
filters on, they sleep through the night. No one needs an inhaler at all. So that is a testament for me. I call them the Rolls Royce of air filters, because they use it in NASA, they use it in universities, and I've never seen anything quite as good as this at keeping the mold and mycotoxin problem away. So for anyone out there listening that's sensitive and you cannot absolutely leave your home, which is number one rule of environmental medicine, avoidance. If you can't do that, look into the Asiate air filters.
Nice. Okay, I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
check that out. I have an Air Doctor running behind me right now, but I
yeah,
may have to step up my game here as well. So that's cool.
yeah.
You brought up eczema before, and I know a lot of
Yes.
people that I've heard of that have had eczema. It's rough on them, and it seems like it's not normal to have eczema. People might just say, "Oh, it's dry skin. It's this. Oh, maybe I wash my hands too much or whatever." They think, like what causes eczema? Do you think, from what you've seen? Obviously, there can be many different causes, but what
Mm-hmm.
is kind of some of the main causes that you've seen and ways that people have been able to remediate it?
For sure. So, first and foremost, one of the main reasons is over sterilization of everything having to do with the flora on our skin or the microbiome in our gut. Constantly cleaning bleach and toxic cleaning products. If you are doing dishes every day with regular dishwasher, soap, nothing that's green, it's going to kill off your skin flora. And then eczema and other conditions show up because you don't have a flora to protect you. Another reason is, and maybe the main reason, is a histamine problem. If your eczema showed up after you got COVID or you got the COVID vaccine, that is a histamine problem. The spike protein absolutely activates histamine. And every single person I've seen, that is what long COVID is histamine. And so histamine, depending on where it's being released, because there are 4 different histamine receptors in the body, H1 through H4, anywhere from in the gut, the brain, and the blood vessels, all that. So anywhere histamine is being released, it can cause a myriad of symptoms. In the brain, it's brain fog, anxiety, fatigue. In the gut, it's bloating, loose stools. In the bladder, it's interstitial cystitis. In the heart vagus nerve, it's palpitations. On the skin, it's hives, itchiness, eczema. Okay, so that's the main reason. So I've seen all this kicked up with stealth pathogens or COVID. The other reason, and I have it right here, this is the 1940s Merck manual. If you
Hmm.
look this up and you look in this book and you look up eczema, it says to you, Parasites movement under the skin causes mechanical irritation that leads to eczema.
Wow.
So the movement of parasites in the fascial tissues, according to the 1940s Merck manual, can cause eczema. Now, another way parasites do that is by setting off histamine, which is the body's natural defense system. So if it knows it's infected, it's going to be setting off histamine. So these are the reasons for eczema. It goes back to histamine, goes back to oversterilization of skin flora, and it goes back to parasites.
Yeah, yeah. I was never a fan of the hand sanitizer craze, where everyone was right. Yeah, I don't know. Even to this day, like when the person next to me on the plane pulls out the hand sanitizer and it just stinks so bad, I'm like, no, please. Like I thought we were past this.
Yeah.
But look, so you mentioned some good things there. I want to make sure people heard and kind of understood some things there. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
like the soap that you use to clean your
Mm-hmm.
dishes. Or even I guess the soap that you use to clean your hands should be maybe more of they should look for like these natural cleaning products, natural dish soap, things like that, right?
Antibacterial is not good.
Right.
Pathogenic bacteria, okay, but guess what protects you from pathogenic bacteria? Your microbiome, your skin flora. You have you have a bacterial barrier everywhere that helps protect you. So you should be eradicating everything or over sterilizing everything, because then things grow that shouldn't be there. So
Right. Right.
yeah.
And then obviously different fragrances, perfumes, and air fresheners. Like you said, bleach and other toxic kind of cleaning supplies when you could be just using some natural cleaning solution. Those kind of things are what can cause different reactions, different toxicities, different things like that, right?
Yes, 1,000%. And it's just something in our environment. We can't control a lot of things out there. These toxins are ubiquitous in the environment. No one can avoid them. No one gets out alive. But in your local environment, when you can control things, you don't have to be over sterilizing and antibacterial, antiseptic, everything. We've learned differently over the last few years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. Um, yeah. So another one you mentioned earlier was BPA. You said almost everyone you
Yes.
test has very high BPA levels. Now, I'm sure, hopefully, the listeners by now know about not drinking plastic out of plastic water bottles. Listen, every once in a while, if you have to on the run, it is what it is. But
Yeah.
not drinking every day out of plastic water bottles, especially ones that have been sitting in a hot garage or in the sun or something like that. Hopefully they know that.
Yes.
But what
Yes.
else should we know about how to lower BPA? So if one of your clients comes to you,
Mm-hmm.
they have high BPA. What are you saying to them typically?
Sweating. So you
Sweating,
can
yes.
absolutely sweat out some of these pesticides, PCBs, plastics. You absolutely can. So, like, this is why I stress sweating so much, because people come to me and say they just glisten, they get really hot, they feel awful afterwards, but they never break a sweat. And I say, okay, we have to spend some time here. Maybe you get into the sauna and you push it to your limits. The next week you add on a minute or two, and eventually they'll start sweating again. And people are surprised that you can sweat out so many things. But I think it was Brian Johnson just did a whole thing on this, a whole program about how in the infrared sauna he measured his sweat and they found so many metals and so many environmental chemicals and toxins coming out. And so BPA, absolutely the best way to get rid of it. The best way is through an infrared sauna.
Yes, I love it. Yeah, I have a little infrared sauna here as well. And I remember there was one time where I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't feeling too good and I took a long sauna and I sweat and literally the towel that I had wiped myself with after like not to be too much information here, but like just smelled like metal almost or smelled like kind of,
Wow.
like I could almost like smell it. And I just felt so
Uh-huh.
much better after. It was actually incredible.
I've seen people get like brown come out of their body on the towel, like a discoloration. Actually, you just wonder. I just one day want to take that to a lab and get it tested. Of what is coming out of these people?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So sauna, so
yeah.
you're a big fan of sauna and sweating in
Love it.
general, but sauna is going to be the best way to really sweat it out.
For
Okay.
BPA, yes. For BPA
Yeah.
specifically, not everything, but people would be surprised even about how many heavy metals you can get out. And I have a small study. It's not anything huge, but in this small study, it showed you could sweat out things like cadmium, mercury, even lead, which people think it stores in the bones, but this study showed you could potentially sweat it out, which is wild.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, good. So that's good. So there is hope.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think not enough people are doing saunas, honestly. I mean, look, I'm fortunate enough to be able to purchase a tiny one for my house, but for many people out there, I don't think it's something. I know they say in Finland and whatever, all these Denmark, these kind of countries, the normal is like 2 to 3 times a week, a sauna or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or at least once a week. They're kind of doing its normal practice. But here, yeah, unless you're doing it at the gym or have one at home or something, there's not too much. A lot of people are probably missing out big time on that, I would say.
Yeah, I wish that it was part of the culture like it is in Finland and some of the Norwegian countries. They've
Right.
got it right. Another thing that saunas do besides sweating out chemicals is they activate these things called heat shock proteins. And heat shock proteins help us come back to hormesis, or if there's a stressor, they help you acclimate. There's a little chaos, and then you find order in the stressor. Right? It's a good
Mhm.
stressor, the sauna, and so it really, these heat shock proteins, when they're activated through heat, they actually let misfolded proteins take a second chance to refold properly again, and this calls for certain genes. So when you think about Alzheimer's patients who have all these misfolded proteins in their brains, it helps those proteins a second chance refold. And that's a big deal when you've got misfolded proteins that are causing disease like a neurodegenerative condition. So it's like sauna is so accessible to many people, and it's simple, it's practical. We should really be teaching people about this because we have such a problem with mental health disorders and neurodegenerative conditions in this country. So
Yeah, I think so
yeah.
much of that could be cured. I mean, imagine if someone was, doing sauna 3 times a week, removing the environmental toxins, breathing fresh air, drinking clean water, not eating processed foods and sugar and alcohol and raw fish, and imagine just that. I mean, if they did those things right there, it's like pretty
Yeah.
sure that would get better results than most than I don't want to say any medication. I'm not a doctor, not giving medical advice, but seems like this would work a lot better.
I say all the time to people, before you go spend thousands of dollars on a doctor or, something like a last ditch effort, just make sure that your tenets and pillars of health you've already done that.
Mhm.
So you don't waste your money. You're sleeping good. You've gotten toxic people and situations out of your life. You have a community, which is so important. You're moving your body. You're getting sunlight. You're drinking fresh water. You're eating clean food. All these tenets need to be met. You're sleeping well and feel rested in the morning. If you're not doing all these are the best doctors.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and this is you're the expert on like environmental toxins and all the things we've been talking about today. But I've also heard you mention a few times, and I know you have expertise as well in like this getting, like you said, getting rid of toxic people,
yeah.
emotional stress, and things like that cause issues for people. Talk a little
Mhm.
bit more about that, because it's like almost everyone will say at some points that I'm stressed or this. There's different levels of stress. It kind of means different things to different people. What's stressful for me, maybe not stressful for someone else, and vice versa. So how does even someone even begin to know that kind of thing, or what have you seen around this kind of field?
Absolutely. So I'm actually glad you asked this because the way I practice has changed in the last few years. I think most doctors, just like me, don't understand the complexity and the gravity of flight or fight or freeze, and how the body, everything is released differently. Everything is on tilt. Everything is skewed if you're not balanced in the autonomic nervous system. And part of that is, why would your autonomic nervous system be skewed or off balance? Because you've been overworked, you've had too much trauma or hurt or pain in your life. You've eaten the wrong foods for so long. You have a stealth pathogen. There's so many things that can happen to make people stressed, but most people have their system stuck in the on button. And what I've learned, possibly the hard way over through the years, is that you have to get that balanced. That's the first step in my program when people come see me, is how do I calm down inflammation, calm down their doomsday thinking, calm down worst case scenario, calm down their nervous system. Because if their body and mind don't feel safe, it's lost. That's it. We're not going to heal
Mm.
them. You have to feel safe in your body and your mind. And so that's really the most difficult part of my job, and the first thing I address the first month. Now I have supplements like B vitamins, high dose minerals, maybe some GABA to really help people with that edge, but they're not like the bullets that get everyone better. It's really the person who I'm treating and getting them to sit down and learn how to be a human being instead of a human doing and
Mm,
feel their feelings because they're so used to dissociation and distraction that is really it's stuck in their brain and their nerves. It's stuck in their nervous system.
Are there any, like, let's say someone's listening now, is there any book or practice, maybe meditation or a breathing practice or a book or a seminar or something
Mm-hmm.
that could help people kind of who may feel like they have some trauma or stress?
For sure. I'm trying to see if I have a book back here because all my friends have written books about stuff like this. But the one that comes to my mind right through, oh yeah, the one that comes to my mind right now is The Body Keeps the Score.
Body
The
keeps
Body
the score.
Keeps
Okay.
is amazing. Also, The Nervous System Reset by Dr. Jessica McGuire is great too. So,
Okay.
the nervous system is really what I've come to learn is almost every chronic illness, even autoimmunity, starts from anxiety and a spun out nervous system. Almost all of them. And, we now look at the vagus nerve, which is the heralding nerve of the nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. And we see upper vagal conditions as neurodegenerative conditions and anxiety, mental health disorders, and lower vagal nerve problems as ulcerative colitis, Crohn's. And so the GI disturbances, especially, people think they have all these chronic health issues, and it's their nervous system.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Great. Those are some great recommendations here. I wanted to also ask you. I know you've spoken a little bit about root canals.
Yes.
It's a very interesting thing because there's so many people I hear talk about it, and then you hear about real big problems that some people have. Should people, if they can, be avoiding root canals completely? Maybe just pull the tooth out and get a dental implant if you can afford it, or what do you think about root canals?
I'm cautious in saying blanket statements with that because there's so much that goes into
Sure.
that, like someone's pocketbook and their finances and who's
Yes.
near
Yes.
them, maybe if there's a dentist near them or not. But, if I had to have a root canal, I definitely would pull the tooth and put in a zirconia implant. That would be my game plan because I know so much. But that, not to say that's right for every single person, maybe.
Sure.
So, if you already have a root canal, they don't last as long as the human body. I do think there are genetically sensitive people who theirs might fail easier depending on nutritional status and other things. But in general, they last about 8 to 10 years, just like breast implants, because nothing man-made outlasts the body. And it's the only place in the body we leave dead necrotic tissue and think it's okay and save the tooth, but we actually ruin people's health in the long term. And dentists, they kill me because they make all my patients sick. So I'm sorry if I get kind of passionate about this, but I love biological dentists. Even though it's very expensive, they can return people's health. Now, the tricky thing about root canals is they leave the periodontal ligament, which tells the body there's not a problem here. But there's thousands of porous channels within the tooth. So whenever you leave that periodontal ligament, you tell the body there's not a problem. Lots of bacteria stuck in the porous channels of the tooth that can fester. And what I've seen is people will have holes in their mandible where eventually it will be eating away at the mandible. There will be zero symptoms right here locally. It will be systemic symptoms. So you got to
Wow.
think when you go to a cardiologist and he says, oh, you have heart valve problems. You may be on a blood thinner. And then you have to go to the dentist. He puts you on an antibiotic before you go see a dentist. Why is that? Because when they're messing with your teeth, you spray embolic bacteria down into the bloodstream and it seeds the heart valves and can cause endocarditis. Now you're
Wow.
telling me that those same teeth they have meridians that attach to organs. So when you put a root canal and say, let's say the meridian that's the breast, I've seen so many women end up with breast cancer from that
Wow.
meridian tooth. The tooth is a human homunculus, just like the foot. Every tooth represents an organ system. So when you mess with those teeth, you're absolutely messing with the organ systems. And the symptoms we see are not locally, they are in the body. And it is the tooth. These teeth have been, depending on, not my teeth, but teeth in general, are connected to infertility, cardiac issues, autoimmunity, brain fog, fatigue. Your thyroid is right here, right here. So
Mm.
people have head and neck pain, they'll have thyroid issues, it'll be an infected root canal. We
Wow.
pull it out,
Wow.
it'll be black with cysts on it, it'll smell like death. And they'll be
Wow.
like, one of my patients said I felt like a nail was being pulled from my brain. And I started crying. And the dentist got worried about me, and it wasn't pain, it was an emotional release.
Wow.
I hear
That's
this stuff all the time. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So, I mean, it seems like you also think oral health is pretty important. Any tips there? I know if people are still using old traditional toothpastes like Colgate and Crest that have fluoride in them, is that bad? Any other
Yes.
kind of best practices?
Yeah, there's different types of fluoride, right? So the fluoride they put in the water supply, it doesn't even work unless it's physically put on the teeth, but the fluoride they put in the water supply is Chinese industrial waste. So you have to figure out what the source of the fluoride is. That does matter. But, I don't use fluoride every day. I prefer like hydroxyapatite, which does the same thing as strengthening the teeth without being a neurotoxin.
Yeah, yeah. I
But that's
started
just
using
my opinion.
hydroxyapatite. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Same. I mean, a year ago, probably a year or two ago, when I first started hearing more about this, I switched. First, I switched to a fluoride-free, like Dr. Bronner's toothpaste. But then a year or two ago, I started hearing a lot about hydroxyapatite toothpaste, and I see apparently that seems to be the way to go these days for us that want to be
Yeah.
more on the holistic side of things.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
good. I avoid nano hydroxyapatite. I could be being overzealous or very conservative with this, but there's been, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and we don't really want hydroxyapatite there, right? We want it on our teeth. So I avoid nano for that reason, just because we're not sure about it yet. The studies are pretty much inconclusive so far.
That's a good distinction because I have seen some
Hmm.
toothpaste advertising nano hydroxyapatite and regular one.
Hmm.
I thought, oh, probably nano is better because it's whatever smaller. Nano sound you don't really
Yeah.
know, so that's a really good distinction. That's great.
Yeah.
Dr. Jess, this has been amazing, and I know we only scratched the surface, and I know you work virtually with people all over the country, maybe all over the world, who have
Yes.
problems that they can't solve. Where can people contact you, follow you on social media, maybe?
Yeah, you guys can find me a number of ways. So I am really active on social media, especially Instagram. It's dr period Jess period MD. I also have an account called Wellness Plus, so W Plus by Dr. Jess, and we give a lot of free education, information, stuff like if you guys like what you heard today, it continues on those platforms. And then I have my do-it-yourself platform, Wellness Plus, which helps you become your own best doctor and learn how to heal from some of these chronic complex issues if you can't afford a practitioner. If you can, I do see people virtually in clinic. I have doctors under me too that have learned my protocols, and that's at drjess.health. If you like my supplements, Aegis formulas, methylated B vitamins, glutathione, high dose minerals, hormonal supplements, that's Aegis formulas, AEGIS formulas.com. So, yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Dr. Jess, this has been so great, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Same. Thank you for having me, Laura. Appreciate
Uh,
it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would really mean a lot to me if you would forward this episode along to any friends, family members, anyone that you think that would get value out of it and learn something important. The mission at Peak Performance is to help people prioritize and transform their health. And so if you think someone will get value, please, please, please do forward this episode along to them. Also, if you could please rate and review and subscribe on whatever podcast player you are listening to this on, we would greatly appreciate that as well. It means a lot. And I want to tell you about a couple of new products that we just released. You can get 20% off your first order at buypeakperformance.com. That's BUY peakperformance.com. We just released a brand new grass-fed beef protein isolate. This is my favorite new protein powder because it's great for muscle building and recovering and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't give the stomach discomfort and gas that a lot of people get from different types of proteins like whey protein. Some types of plant proteins can do the same as well. It seems to be really, really easy on the stomach while still giving all the great benefits of muscle building and everything else that you want from taking in adequate protein. So check out our new beef protein isolate. We have it in unflavored, which I actually mix and blend with my morning coffee every morning. We have a vanilla and we have a chocolate. You can buy it on Amazon, but again, you also do get 20% off your first order at buypeakperformance.com, BUY peakperformance.com. We've also recently released organic mushroom coffee. We have these in Keurig compatible K-cup coffee pods. We have organic mushroom organic mushroom coffee with lion's mane, reishi, cordyceps, turkey tail, and chaga mushrooms blended with the high altitude organic coffee that we've been using and that we've been famous for years. So that's been a big hit, that one as well. You can get on our website or Amazon, any of our products. And of course, we're always famous for our organic green superfood powder that has almost 5,000 reviews on Amazon with a very high star rating. We're known as the best tasting USDA certified organic green superfood powder with over 25 plus organic ingredients. Again, we also have the organic red superfood powder. We still, of course, have the organic plant protein for those who do prefer the plant protein, but I'm really excited about this new beef protein isolate and all of our other products. We do have over 100 products, so just check us out if you type in Peak Performance Supplements on Amazon or if you go to buypeakperformance.com. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.